Dumela hle Afrika Borwa and welcome to Gender Space, the talk show where we tackle gender inequality issues. Lebitso la ka ke Thwasa, mme ke nna tla ba tsamaisa dipuisano kajeno. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, as per usual, we are going to be exploring another gender inequality issue with the Commission for Gender Equality. One of the common threads about inequality is that the most vulnerable groups are always treated unfairly and subjected to injustice. And this is consistent even in the case of women and girls with disabilities. In one of the previous episodes, re ile ra sheba taba ena e leng hore e susumelletsa GBVF. Jwale bothata bona Afrika Borwa bo entse hore re botse potso ena. What impact does this scourge have on women and girls with disabilities? Re a botsa. What challenges does it present to them? And of course, re rarolla bothata bona jwang? We look at the answers to these questions in today's episode ya Gender Space. Stay with us. O shebeletse Gender Space. Mme kajeno re tshotla taba ke ena ya gender-based violence challenges faced by women and girls with disabilities. You can form part of the conversation by interacting with us on our social media pages. Kena YouTube at Commission for Gender Equality. Kantu Twitter at CGE_ZA. Facebook uteng re Commission for Gender Equality. Instagram at CGE Live. Kantu kan romella email ho info@cge.org.za. Jwalo ka mehla ha ke mong ke na le baeti ba tlo re thusa hore re hlopholle taba tsena re di shebe ka botebo. Re na le kwano CGE Provincial Manager Mezanele Ngwane le Deputy Chairperson Nomasonto Mazibuko. Bomme, welcome to Gender Space.
Ke
tle ke kena ditabeng hobane ke dutse le batho ba tsebang ditaba. Please explain why and how GBVF challenges faced by women and girls with disabilities are distinguishable from those faced by other women. Deputy Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Our challenges are distinguished very clearly. For instance, we are always taken for granted to find that somebody else must speak on our behalf. I'm raped, but somebody must go to the police station. And as I go with my provincial manager, they'll ask her, what happened? And yet she was not there. So our challenge is that we are always taken for granted. And there's this myth that says people with disabilities are highly sexed. Girls and women who have mental challenges, you find that they are violated by family members. Who will believe them? Nobody will believe them up until when a person, that young girl is pregnant in the family, it won't be taken out. But when you go to the hospital or the clinic as a young girl, you are asked, where were you? Who has done this bad thing on you? And they forget that this is gender-based violence.
Ke utlwa tabena ka mantswe a mang basadi le banana ba nang le boqhwala ha se taba hore fela ke basadi ebile ho na le sena se etsang hore setjhaba ebe se ba shebela fatshe ka sona. Ke gola ke utlwisise fela. What informed the decision to pay specific attention to women and girls with disabilities, Mezanele?
Ngizoqala nje ngikhulume ngemandate yaka CGE. Ukhumbule ukuthi mandate yethu siu CGE sifuna ukuthi eSouth Africa ube khona ukulingana ngobulili, but also ungabi khona any other discrimination. So uma uzobuka lapho asikwazi ke ukuthi abantu that with disabilities sibashiye ngaphandle. So nje mhlambe masiqale lapho ukuthi we are informed by our mandate as the CGE that this is part of the work that we need and the service that we need to be putting out there. But also importantly, into es informile uma uzobuka in into ye summit on gender-based violence. I summit on gender-based violence eyokukala neyesibili ne uzokhumbula Thwasa ukuthi i-identifyile ukuthi i-GBV is very high. Sithe uma sihleli kwi summit sabona ukuthi people with disabilities bebengafakiwe kakhulu as sufferers, as victims of GBV. And loko kusinikile si Commission for Gender Equality that we have a responsibility. But most importantly, the state is duty bound to provide services for people with disabilities, then because of our mandate and our powers of oversight, and that is what we are doing to monitor and exercise oversight on the state in terms of ensuring that services for all South Africans, including people with disabilities, are also taken care of.
Me ke batla go gutlela ho wena me Mazibuko. O buile ka taba ya ho shebelwa fatshe ha batho ba nang le boqhwala. You spoke about how they are looked down on. You spoke about how there's always somebody speaking on behalf of. Me o qeta o bua ka hore the state must ensure hore there are adequate services so that people with disability can also access justice and help. Do you find that this is the case? Ke boetse mohlala motho a tlang alla a re ke bitue e leng hore o hloka motho a tlo etsa sign language ke etse mohlala. O fumana batho ba buang sign language mo a kgone hore a utlwane le batho ba maponesa.
Ke titla e re nkileng as CGE gore bomme ba lekane, bana ba banyana ba lekane. That is why we are going to give service equally. And then o kry gore nako e telle re shebetse fatshe ka gore ke bona bao ha o ka sheba le melao ya country le ko kae le kae ha go tlo bua ka batho ba na leng boqhwala ba re le bona. We are never taken seriously gore ha go etswa mothomong policy or go na le mokete re buile mo ka jeko no go sa nagane gore go na le motho o tshwantseng gore a be le step gore a ye kodimo. Kutlo pele ya ka e thabile gampe ke bona sign language interpreter gore we are taken serious by your studio. And ha bana ba le banyane ba fitliwa ke di parents tsa bona gobane a gona motho o batlang gore go tsibiwe gore kwale kwa Mazibo go na le ngwana o na le boqhwala. Re krea gore ha se tshantse gore re ye sekolong re fitlhilwa kere a re kene ko sekolong le dithaka tsa rona. Ha re fitla ko sekolong ha nako e ya so go thiwa a o sa kgona go ya ko matric o na le 19 years. Ke tlo etsa yang because nna ke tlile ko sekolong ke na le 11 years. A re ye ha santse re kry mosebetsi ha ba panel e dutse mole. The panel, you can see from the panelist gore ba re ra mo utlwisisa mara una le boqhwala. So that thing means we are still not equal. Well looked after, but CGE inkile qeto ka mandate ya bona gore a gona gore ba qhwadile ba banyane ha re bua ka basadi re bua ka plain field ke basadi a gona gore o monyane. That's re tsamaile ra ya ko pele re ibile re na le generations mo basading go na le older persons.
Tabena ngata me re tlo tswella pele ka yona e tibile ho bohlokwa hore re ithute. So don't go anywhere. We are putting a spotlight on these challenges, and hopefully by the end of today's show o tla botse ba hore o lele kae ha ona le bothata. Don't go anywhere. Re tswella pele ka mora mona. Titi Pote. Welcome back to Gender Space with myself, Twasa. Re bua ka di challenges tseo basadi le banana ba nang le boqhwala ba iphumana ba tobane le tsona haholo re shebile taba ya GBVF. Mezanele Ngwane le me Nomasonto Mazibuko ba tswang CGE ke bona baiti ba rona ka jeno re thusa ho hlopholla taba ena. Bomme ke a lebohantse re le mmoho. Jwale, remember that to be heard Yamani di social links are on YouTube at Commission for Gender Equality. Kena le Twitter at CGE_ZA. O ka kena Facebook re Commission for Gender Equality. Kantu Instagram re at CGE Live. O ka romela email ho info@cge.org.za. Bomme lile la bua harentse re bua taba tsena hore you mentioned that in some instances, women were victimized based on their disabilities. Do they have a voice to speak out and get justice?
Twasa uthi ngokubonisa ukuthi esikhathini esinzima esidlule kuzo la kade kune COVID sonke sifaka ama mask. Umuntu ongezwa ngoba abantu abangezwa bayakwazi ukuthi bakubone eindebeni zakho zomlomo mawukhuluma bezwe ukuthi uthini. Ngani ngoba angithi besingakafundi sonke ukuthi kuyenziwa kanjani lo mdlalo abawenzayo. So loyo muntu kusho ukuthi ubekhathekile engena communication hohang. Manje lo muntu mayisebanjwa umuntu ekufanele ukuthi ayokhuluma and masifika lapha ema police station abantu abasibekezeleli and into esihlanganele njengabantu abakhubazekile ukuthi sikhulume ngezwe lilodwa ukuthi umuntu onalo wakhubazeka uyafana nami. Amaphoyisa awanasikhathi esanele noma sesiswe kulaya amagumbi ethu naye lo muntu olapha ya othatha istatement sami akafundiswanga ukuthi ukhuluma kanjani nami, akafundiswanga ukuthi fanele angibekezele konke ngikushayo ukuthi uwazi ukuthi nje hayi labantu laba bathanda ukucomplain, hayi labantu laba bahambelana ebusuku kanti fanele ukuthi mina ngumuntu omusha okhubazekile ngingakwazi ukuhamba ebusuku.
Watsa mme o bua ntho e kgolo mme Zanele ho na le ntho ene ntse re bua mona ya mme o bua ka motho e leng hore o na sa kgone ho bona batho ba reng ka lebaka la mask. Ke utlwile mong alla ka access ntho e simple ya healthcare hore jwale mono ho na le motho a mo thusang jwang. How le dila jwang le situations se jwalo?
Zinkinga ezinzima Twasa lezo ngoba into enkulu kakhulu esikhuluma ngayo masikhuluma nge-access is even including one language ukuthi what is the language I'm speaking. Well, different disabilities mhlambe sizoqala sikhulume ngebuilding itself ukuthi ngiya eclinic as you are using that as an example. Ngiya eclinic if ngikwi-wheelchair le clinic inayo access ramp na yokuthi ngingene ngale wheelchair yami. So that way issues will start for a person osebenzisa i-wheelchair. Now sizokhuluma ke manje say ngomuntu ongezwa. Masifika lapha ya njengoba uCommissioner Mazibuko bekashilo ukuthi beyingakabi even official i-sign language. Sithola ukuthi ema-clinicini abakhoni uku-understanda i-sign language. Akunamuntu okhuluma i-sign language. Not only ema-clinic, it was every service point. Police stations, SASA, Sizakala Center in the municipalities. Akunamuntu o understanda i-sign language. So the other question you had asked was, do people with disabilities have a voice? Nah. I want to remind ababukeli nabalaleli ngoba ngithi sinabo nabalaleli la ngoba bakhona abasilalele abangaboni basilalele kodwa ithi into nothing about us without us kusho people with disabilities ukuthi sine voice, we can speak whichever way we can speak. Yini enikufanele nisizwe musani ukuplana ngathi singekho thina makuplanwe ngathi ukuze phela lama plan enwenzayo in terms of ama programs azoba geared to ama needs ethu ngoba nisebenza ukuplana ama services lanko nathi singabanye benu sihambisana equally. So that's the most important thing, that we need to make sure that duty bearers, they understand nothing about us without us.
Mezanele le Mazibuko le buile dintho tsa bohlokwa hona le ntho le buileng ya hore setjhaba kapa di office tse fapaneng di shebela batho ba nang le boqhwalafatshe haholo banana le basadi. Ke batla o tla tabeng ena. Do you find that women and girls are still willing to come forth and speak, even after being turned away so many times, even after being rejected so many times? Are they still willing to say, no, we want to be heard, we want to speak?
Twasa, I think abalaleli kanye nawe msasasa uyazi ukuthi khona abantu abaphume 20 years after umuntu areyishwa ubabakhe la ekhaya. So nabantu abakhubazekile bazimisele ukuthi ngingahlali lisikhuphise kintse kisa kwalikwa tshantse ba ikemiseditse batho ba na le boqala gore e re ke bue ka yona ke tlo kreya gore ke kreya phomolo. And secondly batho ba na le boko ba batla go utlwagala. That is why ECGE ithi siyababonelela abomama namantombazana akhubazekile ngoba imandate yethu ithi abantwana abakhubazekile nabomama. So na ECGE iphezulu kwalo mkhankaso ukuthi wonke umuntu uvulelekile woza nenkinga yakho sizokulalela.
Hi, yeah, taba tsena dingata. Mamela, let's take another quick breather. We unpack the topic further. Kamora mona, Titi Pote. Wamuhetsu hape ho Gender Space, the show that advocates for gender equality. And today's discussion, re shebile diphephetso tseo basadi le banana ba nang le boqhwala ba iphumana ba tobane le tsona haholo ha re shebile gender-based violence. Jwale ka jeno baiti ba rona ba ntse ba tswella pele hore hlophollela ditaba tsena. What is the CGE and other stakeholders doing to address their grievances and to give women that much needed voice? Ola bua mme hore mme Mazibukore ba ikemiseditse ho bua, but re etsang CGE e etsang ho ba fa that needed voice?
If I may take that, yeah, ngiyabonga. Astaleng ngokuthi CGE has got different departments within the CGE and as to how we deliver the mandate. We've got a legal department, and through the legal department, we've got what we call complaints handling. We receive complaints from the public, and receiving complaints from the public, it includes complaints of people with disabilities. Let me give you one example. In the office at KZN, we received a complaint from one of the stakeholders that we work with, which is focusing on people with disabilities, and they focus on people with abangezwa. Now, a complaint that we received from that organization, KwaZulu-Natal Deaf Association, was that they have a young lady that is reporting ukuthi over the weekend ureishiwe, and now they need assistance ukuthi ayovula icala. So through that, working with that stakeholder, I said, oh yes, go to the police station in your Vulicala. Then if you have challenges, you can then come and back to CGE. Remember, we are, as the CGE, our mandate is mainly monitoring and oversight and education. We are not the first responders. We're not the ones that open a case. It's SAPS. So they went to SAPS. That when they came back to the office and asked our assistance, we went with them to the police station. They couldn't open the case because there was no one at that police station that understands sign language. So that is part of what we do through our legal department. But we also have a public education and information department where we mainly do awareness education. And that department, that's where we then deal with stakeholder management. As I just mentioned, that we work with that particular stakeholder. It is through that the work that we do through our PEI, Public Education and Information. We also have the research department within the CGE, where we do proper research. We go out to find this information. What are the challenges faced by in terms of access to make an example that you cited earlier on, health. So through our research department, we can look at as to what are the challenges that people find and face when they access health services. And just before I move away from this topic, I want also to mention that we must remember that access to sexual reproductive health rights is important, and denial of that access is actually identified by CEDAW in their recommendation number 35 as gender-based violence. So access to sexual reproductive rights is viewed as a GPV, one of the GPV criterion that you can use. So if I'm being denied when I get to the clinic because I can't speak, I'm denied to maybe termination of unwanted pregnancy because they cannot understand what I am saying. That is GPV.
Sure. Now, what should victims sitting at home watching us, who have yet to receive justice do to initiate the wheels of justice, they must begin turning for them? What can they do, Memazbu?
Okokuqala nje uZanele ufanele ukuthi ngabe ukhulume ngama stakeholders, ama victims lana or ama survivors ayiswa kuma endaweni la bezobangahlala khona kwesikhashana. Lezo indawo siyaya siyisiji sibona ukuthi indawo ezikahle ezingamhlalisa umuntu lapho, ngoba kwathina bantu esizalana nani nesihlala nani ekuhlalweni anyeke nifuna ukuthi sizochilekisa nani. Anyeke nifuna ukuzochilekisa nani. Manje mabe ngixakekile ekhaya ngiya kuma lento ngizothola kubani lapho. And mabufika lapha bathi hawu mama, why you decide ukuza la? Besicabanga ukuthi wena ungahlala awunawo umamncane, awunagogo ongaya kuyo. Hayi angifuna uya kugogo. Ngifuna ukuzohlala la njengawo wonke amakhosikazi ngoba ngidlengulwe umuntu ekhaya. Ningibuyisela kanjani ekhaya?
Sure. As we conclude our discussion, any last words? Any last words to our viewers at home?
Balaleli, i-Commission for Gender Equality ayikhethi balala muntu. Siyafundisa, sinama offices kuwo yonke South Africa. Siyafika nale kwaSoshangane eLimpopo. Siyafika le emaXhoseni Eastern Cape. So akufanelanga ukuthi uhlale phansi. Njengoba sihleli nje bayazi abantu bazosibona kumamona kude. Bazothi hawu sukubonile awusakhulumi ngalesa sihloko sokhuluma ngalesi bese ngiyalandela sengiyinyosi ngithi uyabona sengiyinyosi indaba zambili. Ngiyabonga.
Mezanele ariphethela fela kabukhutshwanyana.
Yeah, siyalibonga leli thuba ebesilinikiwe and sivale ngokuthi sisho ukuthi the CGE ibhekile le ndaba lesiyaye sithi masiyenza ibamfushane siyigoqa sithi sibheke kakhulu what we call red. We're dealing with restriction, exclusion, discrimination.
We could read the color ke red. R-E-D. If I'm a complaint, do call this toll-free number 0800 00 7709. Unfortunately, nakwaruna e fella monaka jeno. Ditaba di ngata, fela nako inele khutshwane. Let's keep it going on our socials. Kena ho YouTube at Commission for Gender Equality, o ka kena le ho Twitter at CGE_ZA, Facebook re Commission for Gender Equality, kanti Instagram ke at CGE Live. O ka romela email info@cge.org.za. You've been watching Gender Space on Dumisa TV channel 340. Nalibitso la ka ke Thwasa. Ha re kopana hape nako e tlang. Goodbye.